Okay, first time I've done one of these in 4 months. Let's make it a good one. In 1960, steam locomotive construction for British Railways came to an end with the completion of 9F number 92220 Evening Star. In 1964, the last standard gauge steam locomotive for industrial use in this country emerged from the Hunslet Engine Company in the form of Austerity Saddle Tank National Coal Board number 66. And in 1971, the last narrow gauge steam locomotive for commercial use altogether also emerged from Hunslet Works in the form of 042 Saddle Tank Tranquil number 4. But since then, here in Britain we've continued to build steam locomotives in limited numbers. We all know the first new-build standard gauge mainline steam locomotive in Britain for 48 years was completed in 2008, but we also know that Tornado wasn't technically the first new steam engine in British railway preservation. 3 years earlier, the Great Western Society completed a 16-year project to construct a replica of a broad-gauge Firefly from 1840. In the same year, Alan Keefe, who have been building new smaller-scale steam locomotives for years, turned out a new Kerr Stewart Tattoo for the Corris Railway based on their original number 4 from 1921. Hell, there was even a new Corrie Hunslet built in 2005. But you can't really overlook the fact that since the A1 project was launched in the 1990s, loads of new build projects have come out of the woodwork and even more are going on today. As of 2018, the number of new steam locomotives under construction in the UK is vast. There's a new Patriot, Brighton Atlantic, Clan, Class 2 tank, Class 3 tank, County, Grange, Saint, Night Owl, a P2, another P2, a G5 and a Corris Falcon amongst many others at various stages of construction around the country. And there's even more in the pipeline, including a proposed Claude Hamilton, 2 footballers, a V3, a V4 and a Churchwood County, amongst other proposals that people are undoubtedly going to try and bring to my attention in the comments. Hence why I said amongst other proposals. So why are new build projects being championed so much? They can create work for engineering firms that manufacture all components from frames and boilers to nuts and bolts. Manufacturing in the UK isn't what it used to be, so if components can be made inland by small firms who are desperate for anything they can lay their hands on, then at least it's another thing to keep them going for a little while longer, labour and materials permitting. In turn, they set up the opportunity to manufacture new components for similar existing engines. A modified version of the pattern for Tornado's middle cylinder was used to create one for the existing A2 Pacific Blue Peter as part of her ongoing overhaul. They offer the chance to rectify faults and niggles previously associated with certain designs by experimenting with modern materials and new techniques. The Darlington P2 number 2007 Prince of Wales is a modern update of an old design, sharing many identical and adaptable components with Tornado. When completed, the engine should iron out the kinks associated with the design in the 1930s. They produce factory-fresh locomotives which remain in young condition for decades compared to the half-century museum pieces we consider to be modern engines. The BR standards may be the most versatile things on the heritage railway circuit today, but even the youngest one is quickly approaching 60 years old, and given the reliability of both Britannias in recent years, it's fair to say the rest of the range is knocking on a bit. In 2017, Tornado undertook dozens of mainline outings, including 3 planned DAMF days running 2 return service trains from Appleby to Skipton and her 100-mile-an-hour dash. And that's before she took time out to visit heritage lines including Didcot, Nene Valley, Great Central Railway Nottingham, Bodmin and Wentford, and steal the spotlight in Paddington too. I'd hate to think what would happen if Britannia tried to do all that. But most importantly, I feel, new builds allow us to experience something we thought mankind would never see again in the flesh. Genetic engineers can't breed new dodos yet, but it looks like we're getting a pair of P2s, the Corris have their own trademark locomotive, and we can once again run a Manning Wardle and a Baldwin on the Linton and Barnstable. Maybe we should consider ourselves lucky. But there are problems with new build projects. See, there's already enough locomotives left in the UK which have yet to be restored, and in some cases, now that money's being diverted away from restorations and towards new builds, may never be restored, either in their own right or as something else. 213 locomotives were rescued from Wood & Brothers scrapyard at Barry in South Wales, but not all of them have been restored to running or even cosmetic condition. It's 50 years since the end of standard gauge steam on British Rail, yet half of the Barry 10 are still in Barry condition. The new P2 number 2007 Prince of Wales is currently estimated to cost £5 million to build. Yet an overhaul of something like Stepney, while not actually costed up yet, doesn't really seem very likely to cost more than 1/10 of that. Even if Stepney is f***ed. Furthermore, according to the 6201 Princess Elizabeth Society, just £20,000 will pay for the new small tubes and work on the blower, then Lizzie can run again. Hopefully. Now, everybody's going to have their own reasons for caring about one thing over the other and contributing to one thing over the other, but when you can restore several existing engines for the price of building a brand new one, you can sort of see why some people raise the question about new builds. There's only so much money to go around when the fat cats always win and the ordinary average guy can only just about get by from month to month. So why should new engines scoop all the finance from the old? I think one thing to bear in mind is the condition that some of the existing fleet has reached. As recent as 2014, a Great Western 2800 was broken up for spare parts instead of being chosen for restoration in its own right because it was uneconomic to fully restore. Now before you start stabbing your keyboards yelling, "How dare they scrap a steam engine?" let's just try and be realistic for a moment. There simply comes a point when something is in such poor condition after being left to rot for such a long time that you might as well throw it away and build a new one from scratch because the rust is the only thing holding the metal together. Or anything that is reusable is only good for a few more years and will have to be thrown away to avoid any false economies halfway through a boiler ticket. As such, half of the Barry 10 will no longer be their own locomotives. There's a modified Hall whose boiler has gone to the new Colic Grange and whose frames are becoming the new Hawksworth County, featuring an 8F boiler also from the Barry 10. But it's not just unrestored engines getting caught up in that part of the debate. In some cases, a new build may be considered preferable to overhauling an engine that's worn out but is historically significant as it is. I'm not going to dwell on this particular issue too much as it's the subject of another possible editorial, but with locomotives like Lion boasting historically significant components from previous overhauls, tickets and incidents, it's understandable, if rather subjective, why some owners would get a little protective over replacing what is currently historic, even if it is only metal. But like I say, another time. Perhaps. Another thing worth highlighting is the commitment of some of these new build groups. I'll try not to tread on too many toes here, as I've no doubt at least one advocate of each new build group is likely to see this sooner or later, but being realistic, not all new build projects are likely to happen for any number of financial, political, economical or practical reasons. In some cases they've already fallen at the first hurdle. In 1997, a new Midland 2P440 was proposed in the railway press, but within 6 months the project was dropped due to a lack of support. The project needed a minimum of 200 to 300 monthly subscribers to raise the proposed £500,000 needed to build the engine, but only 40 people came forward. So that kinda shows you how much support there really is for a new Midland 2P. In the 1980s, a new London and North Western Bloomer was started, made good progress, and hasn't been finished since 1988, presumably due to changes in priority. Every other year, rumours abound on some grapevine about whether or not it's going to be finished, and then quickly go away again, leading people wondering if it'll ever be finished at all. And that leads on to the biggest issue with every new build project. Hearsay. As easy as it is to say, "Hey, wouldn't it be nice to see this engine again?" some examples are simply too impractical, expensive, or underwhelming for today. We can all imagine what it would be like to see a new Fowler Garrett or Big Bertha, or heaven forbid if the minority have their way, a Leader. But then you have to ask, who would want such a machine? Are they willing to finance it? Are there enough of them? Where would it go? What would it do? And how realistic would it be to actually make it work? A P2 makes sense, as it can fill a gap in LNER history while pulling a realistic number of coaches on the main line to make it viable to earn its keep, whereas a Churchwood County tank, which left little in history's book beyond a reputation for slipping and cramped working conditions, doesn't make quite as much sense. In cases like these, hearsay could make them little beyond unbelievable. There is indeed a lot to be said about the case for building new steam locomotives in railway preservation, just as much as there is for passing the idea of the new and focusing on the existing. But with the way that railway preservation has gone, I think it's fair to say that building new locomotives is slowly becoming more beneficial than it is counterproductive. I mean, given that 50 years ago most people believed a one-off failure missing a cylinder and most of its Caprotti valve gear would never run again, whoever would have thought we would believe so many new build projects would actually exist? The Unknown Warrior will become a remembrance engine, Beachy Head will once again be seen meandering through Sussex, and the masses are no longer laughing at Mark Allott & Co. when they announce what their next project is going to be, because they've proven that while the impossible has a price tag, it can still be done. It just needs a bit more than a social media group to actually make it happen. I'm Chris, and I'm here to gauge the issue.